Hello and welcome to Post Sports Live. I'm Gene Wong, and wow, what a Super Bowl, right? Well, we have a great group of guests here to discuss that game as well as all the sports stories that matter to you in the DMV and nationally as well. Three of the best from the Washington Post sports staff, starting with, in the first chair, national sports reporter Adam Kilgore. In the middle seat, Washington Redskins editor Keith McMillan, and to my left, columnist and original DC Sports blog, Dan Steinberg.
You say three of the best like every week, no matter who's here.
Well, but our staff is that good. Our staff is that good. That's all I'm saying.
But how good the whole staff is, like somebody has to be the best. Obviously, it's just pure pandering.
Right. Well, what are we discussing today? We're going to start you off with what else? The Super Bowl 49, the biggest game of the year. And then we'll bring the conversation back to the nation's capital with the Washington Wizards, the Washington Caps, and then we'll wrap up with a look at some of our local men's college basketball teams. But off the top, the New England Patriots beat the Seattle Seahawks 28-24 to win Super Bowl 49. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick get their fourth Super Bowl. Tom Brady joins Terry Bradshaw and Joe Montana as the only quarterbacks to win 4 Super Bowl rings. So, Dan Steinberg, with that in mind, where does Tom Brady rank among the greatest players of all time?
Yeah, golly. I mean, I totally understand it. And even in my head, I'm sure that I'm thinking that Tom Brady is a little bit greater now than I thought 3 days ago. But on the game's crucial play, Tom Brady had nothing to do with it, and I don't feel like that play should really affect his legacy one way or the other. I mean, that's like the logical thing to say, right? That whether or not Butler makes that play shouldn't affect how we think about Tom Brady. I know that it does. I mean, I think at a minimum, you know, he's with those guys that you mentioned, he's one of the 3 or 4 greatest of all time. But he probably was, even if they lose that game. And so, I mean, I would say he's you know, within the top 2 to 3 quarterbacks in NFL history, but probably that shouldn't be changed based on what happened.
Dan, my question, no, I agree with you there, but my question was as terms of greatest players of all time. We're talking about other guys too, like Jerry Rice, like Lawrence Taylor.
We're talking about greatest players independent of quarterback.
I mean, think about it. But the quarterback obviously touches the ball every snap, so it's really important. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying to consider other players too, not just the quarterback position.
Okay, I'll pass for a second.
Okay, well, Keith,
I mean, that's like apples and Volkswagens.
No.
Like, how do you compare like a quarterback
apples and
like
Volkswagen.
From this generation to like a receiver like Don Hudson or Tom
well,
Brady?
we're talking
Like,
about Super Bowl. We should talk about the Super Bowl era.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
All right.
who do you have as the greatest player?
I mean,
is it Tom Brady?
I mean, it's so hard to say. The one thing that came to mind about the idea of like legacy and all that, I think it obliterates the argument of Brady or Manning for this era. Like, so last year Manning played the Seahawks. That's fine. But I think there's definitely like a huge exclamation on it. The fact that I mean, Manning played that defense last year in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he had John Fox and not Bill Belichick to sort of scheme, but I mean, they embarrassed Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And Brady was just a tactician, shredded him for most of the game. So I think that is the one thing you can say definitively. But you know, if you put Joe Montana in this Patriots offense when he was at his peak, is there a difference? Is it better? Is it worse? I mean, how do you answer that question? Probably it looks pretty much the same because Montana was a great player and has the same strengths as Brady. But you know, I think you start there. I think you start with Montana and Brady, and because they're quarterbacks, they're going to be the top. I don't know. I think but how do you compare him to Lawrence Taylor? I mean, Lawrence Taylor maybe was more dominant than any player in Super Bowl era, but
maybe.
How do you start to even dissect that? I don't know.
Well, Keith, is Tom Brady to you the greatest player of the Super Bowl era?
I don't know. I think we obsess a little bit over fixating on one guy who's the greatest, and we do it to the era that we grew up watching. If you ask me, I would probably say Joe Montana. That's a guy I was fixated on when I was a kid. You ask my dad, he would say Terry Bradshaw. You ask my dad's dad, he'd probably say Johnny Unitas.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard to compare across eras, but I did look at Tom Brady. His career, there's nothing in his profile that you know, no matter how you slice the greatest, whether it's most championships or racked up numbers,
or stats,
longevity. He does have all of it, and then he has that thing that the it that I guess you can't even quantify. That guy he's just wired differently.
Yeah.
You know, and he. I mean, we made the argument like if Peyton Manning had Belichick, would he have success? Probably a lot of it. But if you took Brady off and put him on another team, you know, I think he's probably wired a certain way where he probably would be successful anyway.
No, I completely agree with that 100%. Dan, let's move on to the next question. Better chance of being back in the Super Bowl next year, the Patriots or the Seattle Seahawks?
I think that you could make a strong argument for both sides, really. I would lean towards Seattle, I think, mostly because of their insane home field advantage. I feel like that's going to get them
Although
so many wins. And
the Cowboys went in there and beat them up pretty bad, and that's that. No, I'm just saying. That's my point. Is how strong is the home field advantage when the Cowboys can come in and beat you there?
I mean, they're not invincible, but it's still
pretty good at home this year.
They are pretty good at home
this year. And if they,
Packers pretty good at home too. I mean,
they are. But if you start out thinking you're like 6-2, 7-1 at home, and then you have a good chance to play home playoff games, it just feels like that's the edge to me. In addition to all of the young players that they've got, Russell Wilson in his prime, all the other reasons, I think the home field advantage to me pushes them over the edge. That's why I say they're more likely.
Well, Marshawn Lynch, we don't know what his status is going to be with the team, right? If they lose him, I don't know if you think things could change. Who do you assess as a better chance to get back next year?
I would say the Patriots have a better chance to get back because the NFC is stronger than the AFC right now. Who do you worry about beating the Patriots in the AFC right now, especially with the Broncos retooling?
Right.
Maybe the Steelers or the Ravens. Somebody in the
I would like to have seen
North.
the Steelers with Le'Veon Bell full strength and then see what would happen.
But the NFC, I think, in a lot of ways, is loaded or could be loaded. Seattle, first of all, has to just get out of its own division.
Yeah.
Right. You got the Cardinals. In theory, they'll have a quarterback next year. The 49ers.
New
could
coach.
But also had a pretty talented roster, and they were missing some key guys this year. The Cowboys and Eagles, both 10-win teams this year. Packers and Lions.
Yep.
So I think the NFC is going to be a little harder to get back to the Super Bowl. I mean, as we saw in the NFC Championship game, Seattle almost didn't get to the Super Bowl to begin with.
Adam, which team do you think has a better chance?
Keith said exactly what I was going to say. I totally agree. It's just you look at like I think Dan makes a good point about the edge the Seahawks have, but playing in the AFC East is basically equal to, if not better than, Seattle's home field advantage. I mean they're gonna win. They're gonna win that division. I mean there's no I think Rex Ryan is interesting in Buffalo, but who's playing quarterback for them?
Yeah.
So I definitely the Patriots have the easier road, so I would pick them. But I think the Seahawks are probably. I think they have more talent. I think they're going to be a better team next year, but I don't know if they'll have an easier path to make it.
It's kind of amazing though because it's so hard to predict the NFL from year to year, and teams have such violent swings up and down. But the AFC East is just the same every year. It's like 3 bad teams in the Patriots every year, and it doesn't seem like that. Every other division seems to flip itself over.
The Dolphins are making some inroads. I mean,
you wonder if chasing the Patriots just they teams can't trying to catch that standard is what sort of hurts them, and do they make desperate moves? Do they sort of outsmart themselves trying to catch this juggernaut in their division? I wonder if that has anything to do with why the 3 teams have been so bad for so long, pretty much.
Yeah, it's in the West though, in the NFC West, when you look at what Seattle's going to have to deal with, I would think that San Francisco's going to take a step back, right, with a new coach. You would think. I mean, I don't know, and the quarterback situation to me has been regressing over the last couple of years, much like Robert Griffin III has with the read option guy. But anyway, we have a whole entire 8 months to assess that. So now let's move back to the DMV and the Washington Wizards, who have lost 3 in a row. Now all they have to do is go on to play the Atlanta Hawks, who are clearly running away with the Eastern Conference. And the Cavaliers, as we know, are coming. They've won 11 in a row. That guy LeBron James has seemed to figure it out. I'm going to ask you, Keith, are the Wizards in danger of dropping out of a top 4 seed? Because they're right in front of Chicago, just behind Toronto, who they have apparently a bad matchup with. So how do you see that playing out?
Well, I think the danger is actually dropping even from 3 into that 4-5 matchup. Because right now in the East, you have 5 legit teams, and then you have 3 other teams who are going to make the playoffs just because 8 teams make the playoffs.
I think we can agree, though, it's Atlanta, then everyone else is fighting for seeds 2 through 4.
Yeah, but you got Atlanta, Toronto, the Wizards,
Bulls, and
Cavaliers.
Right.
And if you drop into that 4-5 matchup, one of those, you're going to end up playing one of those 2 teams. So really the Wizards, they want to obviously get back on track. And I don't think the loss last night was not good.
No.
You got to beat Charlotte at home, especially without Kemba Walker. But these things happen, and when we get to the cap segment, we'll probably talk about the similar thing.
Sure.
A long season, 82-game season, you're going to have times when you play really well and times when you don't play well, and there's still a lot of time for the Wizards to work their way back up. But the thing that's even more concerning is that we're at this point in the season, and Randy Whitman is still tinkering with this second unit, and still hasn't found the perfect perfect matchup. Yeah.
Well, Adam, is there a concern on your part that the Wizards may drop out of that a top 4 seed?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just because of how well Cleveland's playing, and I mean, I think you definitely want to try to get as high a seed as you can, try to win every game. But I wonder if it's not that. I think they match up really well with the Bulls. So if Chicago's 5, I don't think being 4 is that bad.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to playing the second round, as good as great as the Hawks have looked,
Yeah.
You might want to play them instead of the Cavs in the second round anyway. So the seeding isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
The way they're playing though seems to be sort of maybe alarming is too strong, but it was amazing to see how many players said that we're soft right now after that game last night. I mean, that was really like, given how well they were playing and how sort of sturdy they were early in the year, they seem to be almost like having like an identity crisis here in the middle of the year, which is surprising.
Dan, how do you see the Wizards' fortunes after 3 straight losses? They have not looked good at all.
I totally agree with what Kilgore said. I think the defense is troubling because they were a really good defensive team earlier in the year, and that's kind of fallen off a little bit. We've talked about how they haven't really had many, if any, bad losses. That was definitely a bad loss where they're favored by 8 at home against a sub-500 team. So yeah, I mean, I think that's troubling. The other losses to me weren't as troubling, but now they've got a tough stretch with Atlanta and at Charlotte, the team that just beat them. I don't know. I do agree with what he said. I don't almost think that they match up better with Chicago than they do with Milwaukee, who they would probably be looking at in the 3-6 matchup. You know, then we're like trying to figure out who's going to be the second seed and who their second round matchup will be. It's kind of far away for that. But I mean, it looks inevitable that Cleveland is going to zoom past all of the teams probably besides Atlanta.
Is that Keith? You see that as kind of an inevitability that's going to happen?
And I think that was always what was going to happen. And there was a point in November and December where people were freaking out about the Cavaliers, and you're like, this team's loaded, but they never played together before, and it takes time. I think for them, you know, for a team to figure itself out. Maybe it took a little longer than folks thought it would, but now you see them playing well with the 11 straight wins. LeBron's back playing well. So
this is definitely putting at risk their chance to get the most wins in franchise history, though. Which I mean, to the extent that anyone cares about that, I think they were on pace earlier, and now they're not.
I'm sure they'd love to have that, but being a top 4 seed, I think much more important at this point. Let's move on to the Washington Capitals, who are leaking oil, something bad right now. Have lost 6 of the last 7. They've dropped to number 8 in the East, although they do have some breathing room between 8 and not being in the playoffs. They are 8 points in front of the next closest pursuer. So, Dan, I'll ask you, do you think it's likely that they may miss the playoffs now, given how poorly they're playing and that they're running out of games?
I do not think that it is likely that I think that it's overwhelmingly likely they'll make the playoffs because of that huge gap they have, and also because I think they're better than they've played the last 7 games, and even in those games they haven't always played bad enough that guaranteed a loss. I mean, it's not going well. To me, the biggest concern right now is the second goalie situation, really. Justin Peters has been pretty bad. I think he's 74th out of 75 save percentage for guys who've played at least 5 games. But, you know, when you get to the playoffs, you're not going to be really worried about the second goalie all that much. I mean, they need to get in the playoffs, obviously, but I don't think they're going to struggle to do that. Some of this, you know, they weren't as good as the results were over that 14-game stretch or whatever it was, and they're not as bad as this results right now.
Well, Adam, the percentages indicate, as Dan mentioned, that the Caps are going to make the playoffs, but losing 6 of 7, it could just snowball, or obviously it could turn the other way. But how do you see it playing out for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's troubling the way they're playing right now, but they're not in danger of missing the playoffs. I mean, that would be. I think if you look at like the sort of like people who know this kind of thing and can figure out the odds, that's like a 75% shot they're going to make it. So and they're not playing so bad that they're gonna, you know, they're a real threat right now to fall that far. So I don't know. I think just give them some time. You know, I don't think their ceiling is that high really for the playoffs, but anything can happen. So. Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about them missing the playoffs at this point.
Keith, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about the Caps maybe challenging for the Metropolitan title. Now we're talking about them, I don't know if hanging on is the right word, but they are the final seed in the playoffs. Where do you see their chances having after lost 6 of 7?
Well, they're definitely not playing well, and I think if you read some of their quotes in the game stories, it's almost in their head a little bit.
Well, Brooks Laich especially saying that unacceptable, everything unacceptable.
Yeah, and I think you get to probably a point in the game where that stuff gets in your head. But they're really not that far out of moving up in the playoff standings. The Islanders I think are on top, 68 points. You know, and the Caps have 60 points. So I think there's plenty of room for them to even move up if they get their stuff together. You know, again, with the long seasons, these teams go through these lulls, and I don't think it's anything to freak out about. But when the players start psyching themselves out about it, I think that's when you start to worry.
Dan, I thought that was interesting what Keith just mentioned, because Brooks Laich was obviously clearly upset after this losing streak. But Carl Osner said the other day, they're closer right there. So clearly there's some difference of opinion in the locker room, right?
Some personality stuff, too. I think Carl Osner has always thought that they were right there and just about to turn the corner.
Yeah.
Brooks Laich is more of a realist. I don't know. I mean, some of the teams that they're losing to, they're playing good teams, and they're losing to good teams. Obviously, you'd prefer if they beat good teams, but to me, I mean, it's not like they've lost to a succession of Edmontons. They've lost to St. Louis and, you know, Nashville and Montreal. These are good teams.
Well, we also shouldn't fail to recognize Alexander Ovechkin, who was named first star for the month of January. The guy's 10 straight years of 30 goals.
You know what I was going to write maybe coming up? It's kind of big one to drop right now. But
Yeah.
I think at this point, is he the best professional athlete in DC sports history?
In DC sports history?
Yeah. I think he might be.
Well, that's
That's a pretty good question, man.
But it depends what you judge it on. If you judge it on numbers, or you judge it on championship, is it a combination of both?
I was
Longevity.
going to say, you go back to the Brady question.
Don't forget, Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld, those guys have won championships. Elvin Hayes is a Hall of Fame NBA player.
3-time MVP.
3-time.
Ovechkin's like a
Ovechkin's
lock
been one
for
of the best
Hall
players
of
in the
Fame.
entire sport for a lot of years. Like that, and I don't know how many other players you can say that about. I mean, Art Monk was one of the best receivers in the NFL,
Yeah.
but I don't think there was ever a time in the
Darryl
NFL
Green,
when
Darryl Green.
But nobody was there ever like a 5-year stretch where Darryl Green was like one of the best players in the NFL?
Best. He was one of the 2 or 3 best corners in the league, without
Corners,
question.
for a long time.
But Ovechkin's one of the best players. Yeah, I think he's good. That's a great.
Well,
Good column.
It's a good. column.
it's a good
hot take right there.
it's a good talker. No question about it. Okay, well, let's move on to some college basketball. Our local teams have been struggling a little bit. Georgetown split the last 2 games. Maryland's dropped a couple on the road. GW's lost 2 straight. Virginia lost to Duke, but they bounced back against North Carolina in strong fashion. So we have some great games. All 4 of those teams involved in this week. Keith, I'll start with you. Which one of these games are you looking forward to the most?
I think Virginia against Louisville. Virginia's really compelling right now. Obviously, I don't think anybody thought they were going to make it through the whole season undefeated. Just based on who you have to play
in that conference, no question.
So yeah, the loss to Duke was maybe not completely unexpected, but to see them bounce back,
blowing big lead late, that to me for a team that's it's Pettigrew's defense, that to me was a little bit surprising. But yeah, but the result not that surprising.
But to be able to bounce back, I think was a big deal for them. And now you want to see are they back on track, or is it going to be kind of an up and down thing when they play the meat of their ACC schedule?
Well, Adam, which one of these games are you most looking forward to watching?
I would say UVA. I mean, I'd rather watch UVA play than almost any team in the country. They're just so fun to watch because they're so sound. And really, if Duke didn't get like unspeakably hot for that like spasm of 2 minutes, they would still be undefeated.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, they lost that game only because of like a really brief stretch of success. But I think it'll be interesting how Georgetown does. I mean, they're ranked now.
Yeah.
I want to see if they can sort of
sustain
themselves, and are they the best team in a pretty weak Big East. And Georgetown reminds me too. Patrick Ewing would be on that list too if you look at
Best
EC athlete.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, you mean only pro sports is one thing, but if you include colleges, Ewing would have to be on there.
Yeah, then you bring Iverson
you bring
in there
Iverson
too. Yeah.
into when bias discussions.
Juan Dixon.
Yeah.
I will say that as far as the Big East goes, though, they are RPI number 2 overall conference-wise. They may not have teams that you think can win the national championship, but night in and night out, it's going to be a grind for wherever you.
Rank. It's a bad system.
But they use it, yeah.
Who would win, Georgetown or the Cowboys?
Was that?
Georgetown or the Cowboys?
Okay, Dan, let's get back to the top. Okay, let's get back to the subject at hand. Which one of these games are you looking forward to the most? You could argue Maryland may have the most important threats, even though the games may not be as sexy as some of the others, right?
Oh, Maryland, Iowa is straight sexy.
There you go. There you go.
I am actually curious about that Maryland Iowa game because Maryland's last 2 road games in the Big Ten after such a great start, they've just gotten their doors blown off twice in a row at Indiana and Ohio State. Iowa, they're kind of like a borderline top 25 team. I guess not right now, but that's not an easy place to play, and they need to get a Big Ten road win. So I think that one, seeing what Georgetown does in Villanova after such an impressive showing against Villanova at home, I want to see if they can follow it up. Virginia,
really badly. It's kind of scary for Maryland because sometimes those teams are playing their worst. They're sort of they get their act together. And
that's it. Yeah, exactly. Georgetown to me against Providence tomorrow. Providence is they won the Big East tournament last year, so that's a test for them. And Villanova, they're going to have that game circled because of what Georgetown did to them. I think GW though, they've lost 2 in a row. They had aspirations of going back to the NCAA tournament and winning a game. Now they play Dayton, which is a team they're challenging for, one of the top seeds. VCU just lost. They lost Briante Weber. The A-10 seems to be pretty wide open now. That's a huge loss. You lose the best defensive player in the country on a team that prides itself on that kind of defense. I think the A-10's wide open. It could be a defining game for GW. I don't know if you feel that way too, Dan.
You know a lot more about the A-10 than I do.
Where is the breakdown right
where is GW in terms of the bubble?
That's a question after that.
Say again?
Where is GW in terms of the bubble right now?
They're one of the first 4 teams out right now. So they got some work to do, but VCU took a huge hit. That's a huge deal for them. They were ranked 14th. They lost to Richmond by 10 points. I don't think it's possible to overstate how big a loss that is with Briante Weber.
Yeah, honestly, during the Super Bowl, that's all I was thinking about. Briante Weber.
But now that's all we are thinking about because March is right.
Yeah, no.
Virginia also very interesting to me because can they have the offensive firepower that they need to play a team like Kentucky? Presumably that's going to be the championship game, right? I mean, do you see them be able to do that?
Presumably that's going to be the championship game.
Do you think who else do you think besides Virginia has a chance of meeting? Kentucky's not going to lose. They're not going to lose all the way to the championship.
I mean, that's the fun of the tournament, though. You really don't know. It's not always the two the hottest teams. Well, sometimes the hottest teams coming in, but not the two best teams over the course of the season that end up in the Final Four or the final game.
Like Kansas seems like they're getting ready to run away with.
I feel like Notre Dame is dangerous because they shoot so well. If they have a hot shooting night, they can probably beat anybody.
No, that's their offense is fantastic. So, guys, thanks for the conversation. I appreciate it.
You got passionate there.
March,
funny show.
I love March Madness. I love it. I can't wait for it to start. Right, kind of right around the corner almost. Right. Okay.
Pitchers and catchers soon too.
Our time is done, guys. Let's do this again soon. For Adam Kilgore, Keith McMillan, Dan Steinberg, I'm Gene Wong. Remember to follow us at Post Sports Live. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
One of the best hosts on staff.